The cargo ship moved slowly through space like a tired old whale swimming through dark water. Lee Tae-ho crawled out from under the main engine, his work clothes covered in black oil and metal dust. His hands were dirty and his back hurt from bending over the broken parts for 3 hours. The engine room was hot and smelled like burning metal and old fuel. Tae-ho was 34 years old and had been fixing spaceships since he was 18. He knew every sound an engine could make, every smell that meant trouble was coming. This old ship called Serenity's Edge had been his home for 8 months now. Captain Morrison and his crew hired him to keep their rust bucket flying through space, and Tae-ho did his job well. He walked through the empty hallways toward the kitchen to get some coffee. The ship was quiet except for the soft humming of the air recycling system and the distant buzz of the main computer. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as he walked. The walls were painted white but had turned yellow with age and were covered with scratches and dents from years of hard use. The coffee maker was old and made terrible coffee, but it was hot and had caffeine. Tae-ho poured himself a cup and sat down at the small table where the crew usually ate their meals. He looked out the small window at the stars moving past. They were traveling through the Kepler Nebula, a cloud of colorful gas and dust that made the stars look fuzzy and strange. Suddenly, loud alarms started ringing throughout the ship. Red lights began flashing on and off, making everything look like it was covered in blood. Tae-ho jumped up from his chair, spilling coffee on his shirt. The alarm meant danger was nearby. He ran toward the bridge where Captain Morrison and the other crew members should be working. His heart was beating fast as he climbed the stairs 2 at a time. The alarms kept ringing, getting louder and more urgent with each step. When Tae-ho reached the bridge, he stopped and stared. Nobody was there. All the chairs were empty. The control panels were still blinking with lights and the computer screens were showing information, but no people were anywhere to be seen. He rushed to the main control panel and looked at the scanner screens. His mouth fell open when he saw what was in front of their ship. A huge alien vessel was floating in space ahead of them, bigger than anything Tae-ho had ever seen. It was at least 10 times larger than their small cargo ship, maybe even bigger. The alien ship looked nothing like human ships. Instead of straight lines and square shapes, it had curves like a living animal. Parts of it looked like they were made from crystal that glowed with soft blue and green light. Other parts looked smooth and organic, like the shell of some giant sea creature. Strange towers and spires stuck out from its surface, and Tae-ho could see what looked like veins or tubes running along its hull. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It looked old, very old, like it had been floating in space for hundreds or maybe thousands of years. Parts of it were dark and looked damaged, but other sections still pulsed with that strange colored light. Tae-ho checked the other control panels, looking for his crewmates. Where was Captain Morrison? Where were Jackson and Rodriguez and the others? He called their names but got no answer. The ship felt empty and dead except for the sound of the alarms. He ran to check the escape pod bay. His worst fears came true when he saw that all 4 emergency pods were gone. The metal clamps that held them were empty, and the launch tubes were open to space. His crew had left without him. Tae-ho felt sick to his stomach. They had abandoned him, but why? He ran back to the bridge and checked the ship's computer logs to find out what happened. Most of the files had been deleted, but he found one message that made his blood turn cold. On a piece of paper stuck to the captain's chair, someone had written a note in hasty handwriting. Sorry, Tae-ho. The dragons will finish what we couldn't. Good luck. Dragons. The word made no sense to him. Dragons were make-believe creatures from old Earth stories, not real things that lived in space. But as he looked at the alien ship on the scanner, he started to understand. Maybe dragons meant something different out here among the stars. The ship suddenly shook and groaned around him. Tae-ho grabbed onto the control panel to keep from falling down. The Serenity's Edge was moving, but he was not controlling it. Something was pulling them toward the alien vessel. He tried to start the engines and steer away, but nothing worked. The ship's controls would not respond to his commands. Whatever was on that alien vessel had taken control of their ship and was drawing them in like a fish on a hook. Through the main window, Tae-ho could see they were getting closer to the alien ship. He could make out more details now. There were openings in its hull that looked like mouths or cave entrances. Strange symbols were carved into the surface, symbols that seemed to move and change when he was not looking directly at them. The Serenity's edge shook again as they passed through some kind of energy barrier around the alien ship. Tejo felt his stomach lurch as artificial gravity from the alien vessel took hold of them. They were being pulled into what looked like a docking bay inside the huge ship. The bay was enormous, big enough to hold dozens of ships their size. The walls glowed with the same soft light he had seen on the outside, and he could see movement in the shadows. Large shapes moved in the darkness, shapes that were definitely not human. Metal clamps reached out from the alien ship and grabbed onto the Serenity's edge with loud clanging sounds. They were trapped now, held tight in the belly of this mysterious vessel. The alarms finally stopped ringing, leaving only an eerie silence. Tejo stood alone on the bridge looking out at the alien docking bay. In the dim light he could see the shapes moving again. They were big, much bigger than humans, and they moved with a strange flowing grace. As his eyes adjusted to the strange light, he began to make out details that made his heart race. Scales, claws, long necks and tails. The creatures in the shadows really did look like dragons. Tejo grabbed his emergency bag from under his bed and checked what he had inside. A flashlight, some food bars, a water bottle, his toolkit, and a small laser pistol that probably would not help much against dragons. He put on his emergency suit, which would let him breathe if the air was bad, and walked toward the airlock that connected his ship to the alien vessel. The airlock door opened with a soft hiss. The air that came through smelled strange, like ozone after a lightning storm mixed with something sweet he could not identify. His suit's computer said the air was safe to breathe, but Tejo kept his helmet on anyway. He did not want to take any chances. He stepped into the alien ship and immediately felt like he was walking into a living creature, rather than a machine. The walls were not made of metal like human ships. Instead, they looked like they were carved from some kind of crystal that glowed softly from the inside. The light pulsed slowly like a heartbeat, and the walls felt warm when he touched them. The corridor was much bigger than the hallways on human ships. The ceiling was at least 4 meters high, and the passage was wide enough for 3 people to walk side by side. Everything was curved and smooth with no sharp corners anywhere. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, and they seemed to glow brighter when he looked at them directly. Tejo walked carefully down the corridor, his flashlight beam dancing across the crystal walls. His footsteps echoed in the empty space, and he could hear other sounds too. Somewhere in the distance there was a low humming noise like someone singing a sad song very quietly. The sound seemed to come from the walls themselves. After walking for about 10 minutes, he came to a junction where 3 corridors met. He stopped and listened carefully. The humming sound was stronger now, and it seemed to be coming from the corridor on his right. Tejo decided to follow the sound, hoping it would lead him to whoever or whatever controlled this ship. The corridor sloped downward as he walked, taking him deeper into the alien vessel. The walls here were covered with more symbols, and some of them looked like pictures of stars and planets. Others showed creatures that looked like the dragons from Earth stories, but these dragons were different. They were longer and more graceful, with fewer legs and longer necks. The humming got louder as he walked, and now he could tell it was definitely some kind of music. It was beautiful but sad, like a song someone might sing when they were lonely or remembering something they had lost. The sound made him feel strange, like he was hearing emotions instead of just notes. Finally, the corridor opened into a huge room that took Tejo's breath away. The chamber was enormous, bigger than a football stadium back on Earth. The ceiling was so high he could barely see it in the dim light. Crystal formations hung down like icicles, and they all glowed with different colors: blue, green, purple, and gold. But what really amazed him were the dragons. They were lying in what looked like glass coffins or sleeping pods arranged in rows across the vast floor. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Each dragon was different, but they were all beautiful in a way that made Tejo's heart beat faster. Their scales shimmered with colors that changed as the light moved across them. Some were deep purple like the night sky, others were blue-green like ocean water, and a few were silver like starlight. The dragons were much larger than he had expected. Even lying down, they were longer than his entire cargo ship. Their necks were graceful and curved, their heads elegant and intelligent-looking. They had 4 legs, but their front legs ended in hands with long fingers that looked like they could hold tools or weapons. Large wings were folded against their backs, and long tails curled around their bodies. All of the dragons appeared to be sleeping, or in some kind of suspended animation. Tubes and wires connected them to their pods, and soft lights blinked on control panels near each sleeping chamber. The humming sound was coming from the pods themselves, like a lullaby to keep the dragons comfortable while they slept. Tejo walked between the rows of sleeping dragons, feeling very small and alone. He wondered why they were all asleep, and how long they had been like this. Were they sick? Were they waiting for something? He wished he could understand the symbols on their pods, which might tell him more about what was happening. As he walked deeper into the chamber, one of the pods began to glow brighter. The humming from that pod changed pitch, becoming higher and more urgent. Tejo stopped and watched as the dragon inside began to stir. Its eyes opened slowly, revealing pupils that were deep gold with flecks of green. The dragon's gaze found Tejo immediately, and he felt like those ancient eyes could see right through him. The creature did not seem surprised to see a human, but it did look confused. It tilted its massive head to one side, studying him carefully. Then something incredible happened. Tejo heard a voice in his head speaking in perfect English even though the dragon's mouth had not moved. "You are not the ones who came before," the voice said. It was deep and melodic like the humming he had been hearing, but it carried emotions too. The dragon sounded confused, sad, and a little afraid. "They brought fire and death to our home. You bring something different. You bring curiosity." Tejo's mouth fell open in shock. The dragon was talking to him, somehow putting words directly into his mind. He tried to think of something to say back, but his thoughts were all jumbled up. The dragon's pod began to open with a soft hissing sound. Mechanical arms folded back and the tubes disconnected themselves automatically. The dragon slowly sat up, moving carefully like someone who had been asleep for a very long time. When it was fully upright, its head nearly touched the high ceiling. "My name is Kang Yu-jin," the voice in his head continued. "I have been sleeping for many cycles, waiting for our world to heal itself. But the healing has not come, and now we grow weak. The others who looked like you tried to take our knowledge by force. They woke our guardians, and many died on both sides. I had hoped never to see your kind again." Yu-jin looked down at Tejo with those golden eyes, and the human could feel the dragon's sadness like a heavy weight in his chest. "But you are different," Yu-jin said. "You do not carry weapons of war. You carry tools of repair. Tell me, small one, why have you come to our dying ship?" Tejo finally found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "I didn't come here by choice," he said. "My crew abandoned me. They left me here and said the dragons would finish what they couldn't. I don't know what they meant." The dragon's massive head moved closer, and Tejo could feel warm breath that smelled like flowers and rain. "Then you are as lost as we are," Yu-jin said softly. "Perhaps together we can find a way to survive." Yu-jin slowly climbed out of the sleeping pod, moving like an old person who had been in bed for too long. The dragon was even more impressive when standing up. Its body was at least 20 meters long from nose to tail, and its scales caught the light from the crystal walls like tiny mirrors. When Yu-jin spread one wing to stretch, it was wide enough to cover Tejo's entire cargo ship. "I must show you what is wrong," Yu-jin said, the words appearing in Tejo's mind. "Our ship is dying, and we are dying with it. Come walk with me and I will explain." Tejo followed the dragon through the chamber of sleeping pods. Yu-jin moved gracefully despite its size, its claws making soft clicking sounds on the crystal floor. As they walked, the dragon explained what had happened to its people. "We are called the Drakari," Yu-jin's mental voice continued. "Long ago, our homeworld was poisoned by a great disaster. The air became bad, the water turned toxic, and the plants all died. We built this ship to carry our people to safety while our world healed itself." They walked into a corridor that was even wider than the ones Tejo had seen before. The walls here were covered with pictures that moved like living paintings. He could see images of a beautiful planet with purple skies and silver oceans. Then the same planet covered in dark clouds and dying forests. "We put ourselves to sleep so we would not use up our supplies during the long journey," Yu-jin explained. "The ship was supposed to wake us when our world was healthy again. But something went wrong. The ship's mind became confused, and we have been sleeping much longer than planned." Yu-jin led him to a room filled with strange machines that looked like they were made from living coral and metal wires. The machines were covered in tubes that pulsed with glowing liquid, and soft humming sounds came from everywhere. But many of the machines were dark and silent, and some of the tubes had stopped glowing. "This is the heart of our ship," Yu-jin said. These machines keep us alive while we sleep, and they also control the ship's flight and navigation. But they are biomechanical, made from both living tissue and metal parts. The living parts are getting sick, and we do not have anyone small enough to repair the damaged areas. Tejo looked at the machines with his mechanic's eye. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, but he could see the problem immediately. Many of the smaller connection points were corroded or broken, and some of the biotubes had collapsed. The machines needed someone with small hands and good tools to fix the delicate parts. "I think I can help," Tejo said out loud, then realized Eugen could probably hear his thoughts anyway. "These look like very advanced machines, but the problems I can see are basic maintenance issues. I have tools that might work." Eugen's golden eyes brightened with something that might have been hope. "You would help us even though your people tried to destroy us before." "Those weren't my people," Tejo said firmly. "They were pirates and thieves. Most humans aren't like that. We want to explore space and meet new friends, not steal and kill." As if summoned by their conversation, another sleeping pod in a nearby chamber began to open. A younger dragon emerged, this one with scales that changed color like oil on water, shifting from deep blue to purple to green as it moved. The new dragon was smaller than Eugen, only about 15 meters long, but still much larger than a human. "This is Park Min-ho," Eugen introduced the newcomer. "He is one of our younger generation, and he has been studying your human languages from radio signals we intercepted during our journey." Min-ho looked at Tejo with bright silver eyes and spoke out loud in accented but clear English. "Hello, human person. I am very surprised to meet you. The stories about your kind from the other awakened ones were very frightening." "What other awakened ones?" Tejo asked. Eugen's mental voice became sad. "When the first humans came to our ship, they woke several of our guardians by force. The guardians tried to protect the sleeping ones, and the humans tried to steal our technology. Many died in the fighting before both sides retreated. The guardians told us that humans were dangerous creatures who only wanted to take what was not theirs." "But you seem different," Min-ho added, walking closer to examine Tejo. "You have tools for fixing, not weapons for breaking. And your mind feels calm, not angry like the others." Tejo opened his toolkit and showed them his equipment. "I'm a mechanic. I fix things for a living. I've never stolen anything in my life, and I've never killed anyone. All I want is to get home safely, and if I can help you along the way, that's even better." Min-ho translated this conversation to Eugen through what seemed like telepathic communication. The older dragon nodded its massive head slowly. "We will try working together," Eugen decided. "But you must understand that many of our people will not trust you at first. The wounds from the previous encounter are still fresh in their memories." Over the next several hours, Tejo worked alongside both dragons to begin repairing the ship's biomechanical systems. It was slow work because everything was so different from human technology. The machines were part computer and part living organism, requiring both mechanical skills and an understanding of biological processes. Eugen's knowledge of how the systems were supposed to work was vast, but the dragon's large claws could not reach into the smaller repair areas. Min-ho served as a translator and assistant, helping Tejo understand which tools would work with the alien technology without damaging the living components. "Your hands are perfect for this work," Min-ho observed as Tejo carefully reconnected a bundle of biotubes. "They are small and precise, and you understand how the mechanical parts relate to each other." As they worked, more sleeping pods began to open in other parts of the ship. Tejo could hear movement and voices echoing through the corridors, though he could not understand the dragon language being spoken. Some of the voices sounded angry or afraid. "They are debating whether to trust you," Eugen explained. "Some want to put you back on your ship and send you away. Others think you might be a spy sent by the first group of humans to find our weaknesses." "What do you think?" Tejo asked as he carefully cleaned corrosion from a delicate sensor array. "I think you are exactly what you appear to be," Eugen replied. "A person who fixes broken things. And we have many broken things that need fixing." Just then, the ship's communication system came alive with urgent sounds. Warning tones echoed through the corridors, and status displays began flashing with red lights. Min-ho's scales immediately shifted to dark colors that Tejo was learning meant fear or anxiety. "What's happening?" Tejo asked. Eugen's mental voice was grim. "Our long-range sensors have detected ships approaching. Human ships. It appears your former crewmates have returned, and they are not coming alone." The warning sounds got louder as more dragons woke up from their sleeping pods. Taeho could hear their voices echoing through the ship's corridors, speaking in their musical language that sounded both beautiful and worried. Minho's scales kept changing colors rapidly, shifting from blue to red to black as his emotions changed. "How many ships are coming?" Taeho asked as he followed Yujin toward what looked like a control room. "6 vessels," Yujin replied through the mental connection. "Much larger than the ship you arrived in. They carry heavy weapons and soldiers. This is not a rescue mission for you, small one. This is an invasion." The control room was amazing to see. The walls were covered with screens that showed views of space around the dragon ship. The displays were made from the same living crystal as everything else, and they pulsed with soft light as information appeared on them. Dragons were gathered around control stations, their long claws moving carefully over panels covered with symbols. On the main screen, Taeho could see the approaching human fleet. 6 military ships moved in attack formation, their weapons already charging up with bright energy. These were not cargo haulers like his old ship. These were warships built for fighting and taking what they wanted by force. "Attention, alien vessel." Captain Morrison's voice crackled through the communication system. "This is Captain Morrison of the Human Liberation Fleet. We know you have our mechanic aboard your ship. Release him immediately and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Taeho felt sick to his stomach. Morrison was lying about everything. This was not a rescue mission, and they certainly were not part of any official human fleet. They were pirates pretending to be military officers. "Liberation Fleet," Taeho said angrily. "Morrison, you lying piece of garbage. You abandoned me here, and now you want to pretend you came to save me." Yujin looked at him with those golden eyes. "You know these humans. I know Morrison," Taeho replied. "He was my captain, but he's also a thief and a liar. He probably told those other ships that the dragons attacked me, and that we need to fight back to save human lives." More dragons were entering the control room now. These were different from Yujin and Minho. They were larger and had scars on their scales that showed they were fighters. Their eyes glowed with anger as they watched the human ships getting closer. One of the warrior dragons spoke in their language, and Minho translated for Taeho. "Lee Jae-won says we should destroy the human ships before they can attack us. He fought against the first human invasion and still has nightmares about it." "Wait," Taeho said quickly. "Don't attack them yet. Let me talk to Morrison first. Maybe I can convince him to leave peacefully." Yujin shared a look with the other dragons, then nodded slowly. "You may try, but we will be ready to defend ourselves if your words fail." Taeho walked to the communication panel and activated the transmitter. "Morrison, this is Taeho. I can hear you fine, and I'm not a prisoner. The dragons haven't hurt me." "Taeho, thank God you're alive," Morrison's voice came back, but Taeho could hear the fake concern. "Are you able to speak freely? Blink the ship's lights twice if you're being forced to say this." "I'm speaking freely, Morrison. The dragons are peaceful. They don't want to fight anyone. They're just trying to survive." "That's not what our intelligence reports say," Morrison replied. "We have evidence that these creatures destroyed a human exploration team. We're here to make sure that doesn't happen again." Taeho knew Morrison was talking about the pirates who had attacked the dragon ship before. The captain was twisting the truth to make the dragons look like the villains. "Morrison, I know what really happened," Taeho said. "The first humans who came here were thieves, just like you. They tried to steal dragon technology, and the dragons defended themselves. These people never attacked anyone first." There was silence on the communication channel for a long moment. When Morrison spoke again, his voice was cold and angry. "Taeho, you have 30 seconds to disable their weapons and shields, or we'll assume you've been brainwashed by alien mind control. We'll do whatever it takes to rescue you." "I don't need rescuing," Taeho shouted into the communicator. "I need you to leave these people alone." The communication channel went dead. On the main screen, they could see energy building up in the weapons of Morrison's fleet. The human ships spread out into attack formation surrounding the dragon vessel from all sides. "They are preparing to fire," Yujin said sadly. "I had hoped your people might listen to reason, but fear and greed seem to control them." "Not all humans are like this," Taeho said desperately. "Morrison and his crew are criminals. Most humans would be amazed to meet your people and would want to learn from you, not fight you." "Perhaps," Yujin replied. "But right now we must deal with these humans who chose violence over words." Lee Jae-won spoke again in the dragon language, his voice urgent and angry. Minho translated quickly. He says our defensive systems are still not fully operational. Many of our people are still waking up and our weapons need more time to charge. If they attack now, we cannot protect everyone. Yujin closed his golden eyes for a moment, thinking deeply. When he opened them again, there was determination there. We will not fire first, but we will defend our home and our sleeping ones. All dragons who are awake must help prepare our defenses. Taeho watched as more dragons rushed through the corridors outside the control room. Some were carrying what looked like biomechanical weapons that pulsed with internal light. Others were heading to control stations throughout the ship to manage defensive systems. What can I do to help? Taeho asked. Your knowledge of human technology could be very useful, Yujin said. You understand how their weapons work and how they think in battle. Help us prepare defenses that can stop their attacks. On the screen, Morrison's fleet finished their preparations. Energy weapons glowed bright white as they reached full charge. The captain's voice came through the speakers one last time. This is your final warning, alien vessel. Surrender now or face the consequences. Yujin looked at Taeho with sad but determined eyes. I am sorry your people chose this path, small friend. But we will not let them destroy our sleeping ones. The first human weapon fired, sending a beam of superheated plasma toward the dragon ship. But instead of hitting the hull, the energy hit an invisible barrier that flared with rainbow colors. The dragon shields were working, at least for now. Return fire. Jaewon growled in English, apparently having learned some human words during the previous battle. No, Yujin said firmly. We defend only. We do not attack unless they board our ship. More weapons fired from the human fleet, all hitting the shimmering energy barriers around the dragon vessel. The shields held, but Taeho could see displays showing that they were draining power from other ship systems. How long can the shields last? He asked. Minho checked a status panel and replied nervously. Maybe 1 hour, maybe less. The shields are strong, but they use much energy. And our power systems are still damaged from the previous fight. Taeho realized they were in serious trouble. Morrison had brought enough firepower to overwhelm the dragon defenses, and he would not stop shooting until he got what he wanted. The dragons were trying to avoid killing humans, but Morrison had no such concerns about killing dragons. We need to repair more of your systems quickly, Taeho said. Show me what needs fixing most urgently. The power generators and the weapon systems, Yujin replied. But those repairs will take many hours and we may not have that much time. As if to prove his point, alarms started ringing throughout the ship. On the main screen, they could see that Morrison's largest warship was moving closer, preparing for what looked like a ramming attack. The real battle was about to begin. Morrison's largest warship crashed into the dragon vessel's outer hull with a sound like thunder. The whole ship shook so hard that Taeho fell to his knees, and several dragons stumbled against their control panels. Emergency lights started flashing throughout the control room as damage reports appeared on the crystal screens. Hull breach in sections 7 through 12, Minho called out, reading from a status display. Emergency barriers are sealing the damaged areas, but human soldiers are coming through the hole in their ship. Yujin's mental voice filled with pain as the ship's living systems cried out from the damage. The heart-mind is wounded, the dragon said, referring to the ship's central consciousness. It is trying to heal itself, but the trauma is making it confused and frightened. Taeho could feel something strange happening around him. The walls seemed to pulse with a different rhythm now, faster and more erratic, like a heartbeat during a panic attack. The ship itself was scared and hurt, and that fear was affecting all the dragons connected to it. I need to help fix the damage, Taeho said, grabbing his toolkit. The ship's biosystems are failing because of the trauma. If I can repair some of the physical damage, maybe the heart-mind will calm down. It is too dangerous, Jaewon growled in broken English. Human soldiers are in those sections now. They will kill you. Maybe, Taeho replied. But I know Morrison and his crew. They want the ship's technology, not to destroy it. They'll try to capture me alive because they think I might be useful. Yujin looked at him with those ancient golden eyes. You would risk your life to help our ship heal. This ship is keeping all of you alive, Taeho said simply. If it dies, you die. I can't let that happen. Before anyone could stop him, Taeho ran out of the control room and through the corridors toward the damaged sections. Behind him, he could hear Yujin calling other dragons to help defend the ship's vital areas. The corridors near the breach were filled with smoke and debris. Broken crystal formations lay scattered on the floor, their light flickering weakly. The ship's biotubes had been torn open, spilling glowing fluid that made the deck slippery and dangerous. Tae-ho could hear human voices shouting commands somewhere ahead of him. Morrison's soldiers were spreading through the ship, looking for valuable technology to steal and dragons to capture or kill. He stayed in the shadows, moving carefully toward the worst damage. The breach itself was a nightmare of twisted metal and broken crystal. Morrison's ship had punched through the dragon vessel's hull like a giant bullet, creating a tunnel of destruction 30 meters long. Human soldiers in combat armor were setting up equipment near the hole, probably preparing to bring in more troops and heavier weapons. But what worried Tae-ho most was the damage to the ship's nervous system. The biotubes that carried information throughout the vessel had been severed, cutting off whole sections from the heart-mind's control. Without those connections, the ship could not coordinate its healing or defensive systems properly. He crawled through the debris to reach a junction box where dozens of biotubes came together. Many of them had been torn apart by the crash, but some were just disconnected and could be repaired quickly. Tae-ho opened his toolkit and began working to reconnect the damaged systems. "Hey, what are you doing there?" a soldier's voice called out behind him. Tae-ho turned to see 3 humans in military armor approaching his position. They carried advanced weapons and their helmets had camera systems that were probably recording everything they saw. "I'm fixing the ship," Tae-ho said honestly. "It's hurt and needs help." "You're the mechanic Morrison was looking for," one of the soldiers said. "Command, we found him. He's in Section 9 working on some kind of alien equipment." Morrison's voice crackled through their radio system. "Secure him and bring him to the command post. Don't let him damage anything valuable." The soldiers moved closer, but Tae-ho held up his hands. "Wait, I know you guys think you're doing the right thing, but Morrison lied to you. These dragons never attacked anyone. They're refugees trying to survive." "Save it for the captain," the lead soldier said. "We've seen what these monsters can do. Half the first expedition never came home." "Because they were pirates trying to steal dragon technology," Tae-ho said desperately. "The dragons only fought back to defend themselves." The soldiers did not want to listen. They grabbed Tae-ho and started pulling him away from the repair work. But before they could get far, the ship's corridor suddenly filled with a low, musical sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "What the hell is that?" one soldier asked nervously. The sound got louder and more complex, like a choir singing in harmony. Then dragons began appearing from side passages and doorways throughout the damaged section. But these were not the peaceful dragons Tae-ho had been working with. These were warriors, their scales dark with anger and their eyes glowing like fire. Kim So-young appeared first, a dragon whose scales flowed like liquid silver. Behind her came others, each one larger and more frightening than the last. Their biomechanical weapons hummed with deadly energy, and their claws left marks in the crystal floor as they moved. "Release the human," So-young said in perfect English, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "He is under our protection." The soldiers raised their weapons, but they were shaking with fear. Their guns were designed to fight other humans, not 20-meter-long dragons with natural armor and energy weapons. "We're just following orders," the lead soldier said. "We don't want any trouble." "Then you should not have brought weapons into our home," So-young replied coldly. "Leave now and take your captain's message with you. We do not want war, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." Tae-ho felt torn between 2 groups he cared about. The soldiers were just following orders from Morrison, who had probably lied to them about the dragons being dangerous. But the dragons were protecting their people and their ship from invaders who wanted to steal from them. "Please," Tae-ho said to both sides, "nobody has to die here. The dragons just want to be left alone and you soldiers just want to go home safely. Morrison is the problem, not any of you." More explosions echoed through the ship as the battle continued in other sections. On both sides, people were getting hurt or killed because of Morrison's greed and lies. Tae-ho realized that talking was not going to be enough to stop this fight. "So-young," he said to the dragon leader, "I need to get back to the control room. There's something I can do to help end this battle, but I need access to your communication systems." The dragon looked at him carefully. "What do you plan to do?" "I'm going to tell the truth," Tae-ho replied. "Morrison's soldiers think they're fighting monsters, but they're really fighting people who just want to survive. If they knew the real story, most of them would refuse to keep fighting." So-young nodded slowly. "Go, we will protect you." As Tae-ho ran back toward the control room, he could hear fighting breaking out behind him. Energy weapons fired in both directions, and humans and dragons alike cried out in pain and anger. The battle was spreading throughout the ship, and innocent people on both sides were paying the price for Morrison's ambition. He had to find a way to stop the killing before it was too late for everyone. Tejo ran through the dragon ship's corridors as fast as he could while explosions and weapon fire echoed all around him. The walls pulsed with frantic light as the heart mind struggled to coordinate defenses while dealing with the trauma of the breach. Dragons and humans were fighting in at least 6 different sections of the ship, and people on both sides were getting hurt. When he reached the control room, Yujin was standing over a communication panel with his golden eyes closed in concentration. The dragon was using his telepathic abilities to coordinate with other Drakari throughout the ship, trying to minimize casualties while still defending their home. Yujin, I need to use your communication system, Tejo said urgently. I want to broadcast to all the human ships at once. What do you plan to say? The dragon asked, opening his eyes. The truth, Tejo replied. Morrison has been lying to his own people. Most of those soldiers think they're fighting monsters who attacked innocent humans. If they knew the real story, they might refuse to keep fighting. Minho looked up from a damage control panel where he had been working. Many of the human soldiers are young, like me. They follow orders because they trust their leaders to tell them right from wrong. Yujin nodded slowly. Do what you think is best, small friend. But know that Captain Morrison will not be pleased with your words. Tejo activated the ship's communication system and opened a channel to broadcast on all frequencies. His voice would reach every human ship in the area, as well as any recording devices Morrison might be using. This is Lee Tejo speaking to all human personnel in the attacking fleet, he began, his voice clear and strong. I'm broadcasting from the dragon ship and I'm speaking freely. Nobody is forcing me to say these words. He could see on the tactical displays that weapon fire from the human ships was slowing down as soldiers stopped to listen to his message. I want you all to know that Captain Morrison has been lying to you about what happened here. The dragons never attacked innocent humans. The first expedition that came to this ship were pirates and thieves who tried to steal alien technology. The dragons only fought back to defend themselves and their sleeping people. On one of the screens, Tejo could see Morrison's command ship trying to jam the transmission, but the dragon communication system was too advanced to block easily. These dragons are not monsters, he continued. They're refugees whose planet was poisoned by an ecological disaster. They've been sleeping for centuries, waiting for their world to heal. They have families and children and dreams, just like us. They don't want to hurt anyone. They just want to survive. An explosion somewhere in the ship made the whole control room shake. Jaewon came running in with blood on his scales and anger in his silver eyes. 3 of our young ones have been wounded by human weapons, he reported to Yujin. How much longer do we let them hurt our people? Wait, Yujin said calmly. Let the human speak his truth first. Tejo heard Morrison's voice breaking through on the communication channel. Don't listen to him. The aliens have obviously brainwashed our mechanic. He doesn't know what he's saying. I know exactly what I'm saying, Morrison. Tejo replied angrily. And so do you. You abandoned me here hoping the dragons would kill me so you could claim they were dangerous. When that didn't work, you came back with a fake story about rescuing me. You're not a military officer, you're a pirate. There was silence on the communication channels for several long seconds. Then a new voice spoke up. Someone from one of the other human ships. Captain Morrison, is this true? Did you abandon your own crew member? Of course not, Morrison replied quickly. The mechanic was taken prisoner when we tried to make peaceful contact. We've been organizing a rescue mission. That's a lie, Tejo said. Check Morrison's ship logs if you want proof. Look at the timestamps. You'll see that I was abandoned here 12 hours before Morrison even called for help. More voices started talking on the human communication channels. Soldiers and ship crews were asking questions, demanding to see evidence, expressing doubt about their orders. Tejo could hear the confusion and anger growing in their voices as they began to realize they had been deceived. Furthermore, Tejo continued his broadcast. The dragons have technology that could help humanity explore space more safely and efficiently. But that technology is part of their bodies and their culture. It can't be stolen, only shared freely between friends. Yujin placed one massive claw gently on Tejo's shoulder. You speak wise words, small one. Perhaps there is hope for peace between our peoples after all. The fighting throughout the ship began to slow down and stop as confused human soldiers received new orders from their ship commanders. Many of the fleet captains were demanding that Morrison explain the contradictions in his story. and some were threatening to withdraw from the attack entirely. Morrison's voice came through the speakers one last time, filled with rage and desperation. Fine, you want the truth? These dragons are sitting on technology worth billions of credits. We could all be rich if we just take what we need. Who cares if a few aliens get hurt? The silence that followed Morrison's words was deafening. Even his own crew seemed shocked by their captain's greed and callousness. Several ship commanders immediately declared that they were withdrawing from the attack and would file reports about Morrison's illegal activities. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the merchant vessel Prosperity, a woman's voice announced. My crew and I were told this was a rescue mission. We will not participate in piracy and murder. Morrison, you're on your own. One by one, 5 of the 6 human ships pulled away from the Dragon vessel and moved to a safe distance. Only Morrison's command ship remained, still lodged in the breach it had created in the alien hull. So Young entered the control room leading a group of dragon warriors. Captain Morrison and his remaining crew have surrendered, she reported. They are requesting terms for their safe departure. Yujin looked at Taiho. What do you think we should do with them? Taiho thought carefully before answering. Send them back to human space, but make sure the authorities know what they tried to do here. Morrison needs to face justice for his crimes, but his crew were just following orders they thought were legal. And what about you? Yujin asked. Will you return to your people, or would you consider staying with us for a while longer? Taiho looked around at the dragons who had become his friends and allies. The ship still needed many repairs, and there was so much he could learn about their biomechanical technology. More importantly, he could serve as a bridge between humans and dragons, helping both species understand each other better. I think I'd like to stay, he said with a smile, at least until we can arrange for proper diplomatic contact between our peoples. The dragons have a lot to teach humanity about living in harmony with our technology and our environment. Minho's scales brightened with happy colors. Does this mean you will help us repair the rest of the ship? It means I'll help you build something even better, Taiho replied. A future where humans and dragons can work together to explore the stars. As the human fleet departed and the dragon ship began healing its wounds, Taiho realized that sometimes the best adventures begin when everything seems lost. He had found more than just allies among the stars. He had found a new family and a new purpose that would guide him for the rest of his life.